Ian, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this year makes 9 Super Bowls that the Panthers have not made it to since 2016.
Yeah, yeah, it has been a long time, man. When I was a kid, but at that time, I was eighth grade at that time, so definitely a long time, and hoping to get back there eventually. But we got a lot of work to do in the meantime.
Definitely so. Definitely so. Well, Buzzbound, today we're going to be going over a little bit of Panthers pre-Super Bowl talk. Then we're going to go into the Buzz Boys. Currently, they're playing against the Brooklyn Nets as we speak, losing 19-32 right now, which is insane. Then we're going to go into some good old Carolina college hoops. So, Ian, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it.
Touchdown, Carolina!
You're listening to the Buzz Pound.
Smith scores, and the Carolina Panthers win in overtime.
A Queen City sports podcast covering your Charlotte Hornets and Carolina Panthers.
Halliburton, nowhere to go! LaMelo's done it! LaMelo's done it! Hornets win! Here comes LaMelo.
Here are your hosts, Ian Blair and Cam Gardner.
Buzzbound, thank you for joining episode 19. How about that, Ian?
Yeah, 19 big ones, one away from 20.
One away from 20. Well, we appreciate each and every one of you who continue to listen to us weekly. Keep on supporting us, and we'll keep on providing content for you all weekly. Ian, man, it hurts because we thought sure the Panthers were going to make some Super Bowl appearances after that 2016 Super Bowl 50 we had, and we have not gotten back there yet. You know, back then everybody was saying, or most of us were saying, we'll be back, we'll be back. Well, we've been long from that since.
Yeah, we really have. And for a long time, we figured we could compete in the division, especially in the NFC South, where it's a weak division. It's kind of anybody's race this past couple of years, and we just haven't been able to compete, and it's just disappointing. And we haven't been able to get back. And obviously, Cam getting hurt, and the end of that era, and the end of Luke Kuechly and Jonathan Stewart, and all those boys. It's just a new era of Panthers football, and it's not one that's been going too good so far. So hopefully we got like we mentioned in previous episodes, we got a lot of work to do this offseason to improve the team on both sides of the ball, but we're hoping at some point we can get back to at least win the NFC South. That's a big step and compete in the NFC South.
And hopefully the NFC South as a whole can get back competitive because right now nobody's got a chance, if we're being
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Buccaneers continue to win the division. I believe this year was what, three in a row, if I'm not mistaken. And not even they have been able to compete. They really, I mean, get deep in the playoffs. They've snuck out with some wins and won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady. But
I
past
was just,
that,
I was just
yeah,
about to say it took Tom Brady to get them
yeah.
a Super Bowl. So
Except besides that, it's really been just the division is one of the worst in football. And it's one of those things that you think our team would be able to compete in, but we've consistently finished in the bottom two of the division and just disappointing, man. I mean, we harp on it so much on this podcast, but there's just needs to be moves that Dan Morgan needs to make in this offseason to improve the team. And we have an opportunity to do it with the eighth pick and some cap space, but we really got to capitalize on surrounding Bryce with the weapons he needs to succeed and, kind of start building the culture the right way. I mean, you look at the Eagles, I mean, they're in the Super Bowl and you can see their culture on that team and just they remind me a lot of the Cam Panthers just because the culture was so good and Cam elevated kind of the team around them and they had a bunch of good players, a bunch of veterans. Thomas Davis, Luke Kuechly, Jonathan Stewart, just to name a few, and they kind of rallied together and played as brothers, and that's kind of what it takes. NFL, everybody gets paid, and it's a kind of a business, but at the end of the day, you still got to have a little bit of team aspect, and we've kind of been missing those leaders. Shaq Thompson's one of those guys that was on that team that went to the Super Bowl, but even him, he's just not the same leader that Luke Kuechly and Thomas Davis were, and it's disappointing. But at the end of the day, we just got to start building in the right direction and kind of string together a couple off seasons where we move in the right direction.
and the thing is, we didn't even have like a big superstar team, if we're being honest. We had a lot of role players outside of Cam Newton, Greg Olsen, Jonathan Stewart, outside of those guys, we didn't have like a stacked team, if we're being honest. I mean, look at the other teams that were around us. I mean, it just showed how the dynamic of our team meshed so well when we got to the end. Even just the record that year, 15-1. I mean, back then you wouldn't have even been able to tell me that early that season that's the type of year we were about to have. But it just showed what type of leader and player Cam was to elevate that team. Like you said, similar to what Jalen Hurts and the Eagles are doing. It's fun to see. But who you got, man? Who you got right now in this Super Bowl?
Well, the past couple years, it's kind of a hot take, but I just learned to not bet against Patrick Mahomes. Especially last year, that 49ers team was loaded. Christian McCaffrey was healthy, that defense. And last year I had the Niners. I had the Niners in that Super Bowl, and it's taken me a couple years to realize that it's not smart to bet against Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, they're going for a three-peat, which has never been done in the history of the NFL. And yeah, my gut says Chiefs. I really think Patrick Mahomes is one of those guys, Tom Brady-esque, on track to break his records. But yeah, it boils down for me, Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, on paper, I believe the Eagles are more talented, a more talented roster than the Chiefs. Better running back, better defense, arguably. But man, Patrick Mahomes, he's just that guy. Who you got?
I'm with you, man. You cannot bet against Patrick Mahomes, boy. You really can't. I mean, he is, like you said, I mean, I had the Niners too last year, stacked team, but you just can't bet against the guy. A lot of people were saying how the Chiefs just weren't performing to their fullest last year. They didn't see them getting to the end. He proved a lot of people wrong. A lot of people didn't think they were going to even make it to the Super Bowl last year. And one thing about Patrick Mahomes, if other people around him aren't providing, he'll put his body on the line and do it himself.
Yeah, yeah. And he's just a leader. People talk about, it's kind of a term thrown around all the time, but Mamba mentality. And Patrick Mahomes really has that. And he really elevates the people around him. Like you mentioned, the Chiefs are not a crazy talented team, but they have Patrick Mahomes, and he elevates the play of everybody around him, receivers, offensive line, even the defense. They just rally around. They're a veteran team. They've been here before. They've been to Super Bowls. These guys have won, 2 years in a row. It's just it would take a lot to dethrone them, in my opinion. I mean, obviously it's the Super Bowl. Anything can happen. There's no telling what happens, but it's going to take a lot to beat this team. And Patrick Mahomes has the formula to win Super Bowls and be consistent and be honestly close on his way to being, if not arguably already, legendary. I mean,
I think
it's
he's
just
already
crazy.
there.
Yeah, I mean, he really is. It's incredible what he's been able to do, and love him or hate him. A lot of people don't like him, and all the Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, but you just can't bet against him, in my opinion.
Everything would have to go right for the Eagles. Like Saquon would have to have a perfect game in order for them to even have a chance. I mean, I think it'll be a competitive game, but the addition of Saquon compared to that last time they faced off in the Super Bowl, I feel like that will be a key factor in them winning at all. But I still got Mahomes and the Chiefs. And let me ask you this. You think they're paying those refs?
I I'm tired. I'm tired of this. I'm tired. It's an ongoing argument, especially working in sports. I'm sure you've had this conversation. Working in sports, you talk sports pretty much 25/8, no matter where you're working. And there's been some questionable calls, absolutely 100%. But playing sports growing up, the refs are never the reason that you win or lose a game, whether win or lose. There's 60 minutes of football. In basketball, there's always other plays that don't go your way. And yes, there's been some questionable calls. I think Josh Allen got that first down on 4th and 1 on that quarterback sneak, which was called to turnover on downs. But like I said, they play a full football game. It's not two plays where the refs make, a bad call or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, you could argue they've been bailed out quite a few times this season, absolutely. But it's never, in my opinion, teams never win or lose because of the refs. There's always other plays throughout the game that could be made by both teams that play in the game. And kind of, what's your opinion? I guess that's a good topic to bring up, especially with how social media has been going on about the Chiefs and the refs.
I mean, I agree with you. You know, it's all what's done on the field. I mean, there definitely been some questionable calls, but I don't think the refs are, the ones that determine how a game finishes. I mean, with time on the clock, you're going to get a chance, and if
Hmm.
you got to make the most of that chance you get, and the Chiefs just know how to do it. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I know you just brought up Josh Allen. I mean, I like Josh Allen and all, but just can't seem to beat Mahomes. I mean, no
Yeah.
matter
Yeah.
how hard they try, no matter how hard they play, and they have a history of keeping it at a close game. It's competitive, but they just can never get that edge.
Yeah.
I thought this could have been their year, but no. I mean, like you said, you cannot count Mahomes and the Chiefs out. It's just one of those. It's just one of those things, man. Again, legendary. His greatness, just the way he knows how to lead a team, and they're not even the most stacked team either. Like you said, Eagles have more talent, but due to Patrick Mahomes' leadership and already winning a few Super Bowls already, he knows what it takes and what exactly to do. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's going to be what gives them the edge in this upcoming Super Bowl. But
Yeah.
like you said, you never know. I mean, we've all been surprised. We
Yeah.
were surprised. We thought sure we could beat Peyton Manning and the Broncos that year.
Yeah.
That game did not go at all as I thought it would. But
Yeah. Yeah. That season was tough, especially, and to mention Cam was one of those love him or hate him. He kind of elevated the play of everybody around him, and we had weak spots, specifically on our offensive line, which showed up in the Super Bowl. Specifically, Michael Orr getting eaten alive pretty much all game by Von Miller, who in his prime was incredible. Von Miller won Super Bowl MVP that year, and then we didn't have a ton of weapons at receiver. Jericho Cotchery and gosh, those guys. I believe Philly Brown was on that roster. Shout out Ohio State, and Greg Olson obviously was a great weapon. Greg Olson was arguably our best playmaker on offense, and Cam just was able to elevate the play of everybody around him and kind of be that leader. Whether you like it or not, there's some times that Cam was kind of down on himself, wearing the towel. People point back to him whenever we would lose, having the towel over his head and kind of looking like he was pouting. But when it came to win and when it came to game time, he was a really good leader. And I always will stand on that, that Cam is a good leader and he kind of had his own way of leadership, really. And I don't think there will ever be another quarterback like Cam Newton. Just the way he played, his personality. Even to this day, you could see his personality on the podcast he does, wearing those crazy hats and the crazy fashion he has. He's just his own person. I think he was just one of a kind. 6'5", 260 pounds in
of
every
solid
way.
muscle.
Yeah, in every way of the game, he pretty much was just different. He was just an anomaly, and you could see it. I don't know if you've seen the clips of him doing this special forces training, but to this day, he still has that athletic ability that just blows people away, and he's just a natural born athlete.
He pulled himself up on a helicopter out of a moving boat.
Yep.
The athleticism is still there. I mean, I didn't know how that was going to go at first, but he literally almost did like a pull up. He
Yeah,
lifted
yeah.
it. He lifted his 6'5", 260, if not that, 240 pounds of solid muscle up on that helicopter, which was crazy insane. But like you said, that athleticism is still there, but I still and truly hate his career ended the way it did. But I'll never forget throughout my life what he did for the Panthers.
Yeah.
He changed the whole dynamic of that team.
Yeah.
And I really wish he was able to get that Super Bowl because, I mean, his career is already solidified. Those that know, but that would have definitely put the cherry on top.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you were to build an athlete in a lab, Cam Newton would be a pretty good prototype just with how he's built. And yeah, good times, man. And, reminiscing on good times, and hopefully we can get back to theirs at some point. But I love Bryce Young. I believe in Bryce Young, but it's going to take a lot to surround Bryce with good pieces, especially on defense. I think Bryce can get it done on offense, and he kind of showed that the last couple of weeks of the season. But if our defense came to play, especially against the Buccaneers, and a ton of other games during the season where we put up enough points to win. You just gotta put it together, and it's a full team game. And hopefully one day in the near future, before I am married and have kids, we can sniff another Super Bowl.
Let's hope so, because the two we've experienced so far in this life have been very disappointing. That first one, they were very close, but that was like one of the first few times that we saw of Tom Brady's greatness. We were up And he came back and they ended up scoring that touchdown in the end. That was probably the first football game I remember watching. I think I was 4 at the time. I want to say I was 4 at the time from beginning to end. I already knew I was a Panther fan, but that even more brought me in. Even despite the loss, I was just happy to be a fan and living in Charlotte at the time. It was nothing like it. It's nothing like being in a city where you have a team that makes it to the end, even though they didn't make it both times. It's a good feeling.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, like you mentioned, hopefully we can get there and sniff that greatness, and hoping for a good Super Bowl coming in a couple weeks, and hopefully it'll be a good game, and hopefully in a couple years the Panthers will be playing in it.
Let's hope so, man, because again, it's been 9 years already, and it's been a long 9 years at that. So much has happened with this organization, but that's a whole another topic for another day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you want to get into some Hornets news? Because I have a question for you.
You might as well start off with it, man.
All right, Buzzpound, we're going to talk a little bit about another just, poverty team right now, for lack of a better term. And Cam, I have a very important question for you.
What you got, buddy?
Are the Hornets officially in tank mode?
I don't know what more it could be if it's not tanking. Like it's pitiful. So
Yeah.
many, and I mean I'm convinced we are cursed. And the beginning of this season had me thinking that we might have been out of the curse, but boy was I wrong. I don't know what it is over the Queen City as far as professional sports go, but boy oh boy, it just feels like a dark cloud. I'm gonna just say it again. I would not have expected at the beginning of the NFL season that the Panthers would have ended up being the team that brought more hype to the city of Charlotte, especially the way the Hornets were looking at the beginning. Like those final few games brought so much hype to the fan base. It was insane.
Yeah.
And it's just disappointing. You just see so many injuries to our key players. And then just night after night, somebody is out, somebody important, whether it's now LaMelo Ball with his ankle injury. Thank goodness those x-rays came out negative, but we just got to see how long he'll be out for because we know we've seen this story before. He gets ankle injury, then he's out for week after week after week, but hopefully it's sooner rather than later. We'll get into that a little later, but between him, you got Brandon Miller, who's out for the rest of the season after that torn ligament in his wrist. Mark Williams ends up being out at random times. Cody Martin, I know he's just a role player at this point. He's out sometimes. And then you got starting lineups that involve some of the most odd players on our roster, like today.
Yeah,
It
I was
was,
going to mention that. I was going to mention today's starting lineup.
yeah, I mean, it was like Migic, Nick Smith, who I'm not opposed to starting at all, but we got him, Okogie, Nick Smith, Josh Okogie, Miles Bridges, and our good old what do we call him at this point? Because I
Unk.
mean he's
Unk.
yeah, Unk. I mean we got Unk. I'm not even going to say his actual name. I mean just call him Unk at this point. He's just there. He literally just a veteran of the team. Man, oh, Taj Gibson, bless him. That's all I can say. The fact that he still wants to play now at his age. I mean, I give him a for effort at least.
Yeah.
But man, when we have starting lineups like that, it's not going to be a good night of Hornet basketball. And we're clearly seeing that as we speak. The score right now is 31-44, Brooklyn Way, and they're at home. So then this is those times when they start pulling up people from the G League as well. A lot of faces we don't see very often. But yeah, man, it's pitiful. Like I've never seen a team that dealt with so many injuries all these years in a row, even after you revamp the team a little bit, and it's still going on. I'm just convinced that we are cursed. There's just no other way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. LaMelo just got hurt. Luckily, all his tests and MRIs and scans were negative for any fractures in his ankle, which was good to see. Thank goodness that LaMelo didn't severely re-injure that ankle. Not sure 100% if it was the same ankle that he's had problems with. I wouldn't be surprised if it was. But yeah, Mark Williams not playing tonight, which Mark Williams is a whole nother topic of conversation. He's played very well on offense. I've seen some clips of him trying, well, not really even trying to play defense, which his defense has been very, very poor this year. And yeah, man, it's just rough, and Brandon Miller missing the rest of the season, and yeah, this team really just, we talk about the Panthers needing to find their identity and kind of culture, and I think even more the Hornets need to, because defense, the lack of defense on this team right now, aside from Cody Martin and Josh Okogie and some of these guys, it's just piss poor for a lack of a better term. And a lot of it's just want, it's effort and having a positive attitude. And, these Mark Williams has the talent to play defense. He played defense at Duke and it was a good defender, I believe, at Duke. And it's upsetting to for our team to be as young as they are and obviously still learning, and hopefully they can mature a little bit, but just to play defense and stay on the court. And I feel bad for Charles Lee. I mean, I still only his first year ever being a head coach at the NBA level, and it's just rinse and repeat, man. We've been a bad team these past couple years, almost I guess 3+ years, and looking towards like another lottery top 5 pick, and it's just rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat, I feel. And this year would be a good year to get the number 1 overall pick, but hopefully, I hate to be looking towards the draft this early in the year as we always do, but there's really the writing's kind of on the wall for this team. And we said at the beginning of the year, we just need to have everybody healthy, and the same exact thing that's happened the past couple of years has been happening this year. And it's just frustrating as a fan. And, you want to have success and you want to be able to at least, I would be happy with just barely below 500, if we could just be barely below 500, but we can't even do that. And yeah, man, I just lost for words. It's really upsetting, and it's hard to watch some of these games with how we're playing.
But it's nothing new. That's the sad part
Yeah.
about it. That's the sad part. Like, we said it on either our first episode ever of the Buzz Pound or one of the first few. Like, so many people will tell me, I don't see how you do it, when I say I'm a fan of the Hornets. Or better yet, if they just simply ask, like, who's your team? If I say the Hornets, I get the craziest looks ever.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something you don't hear. I mean, unless you're in the city of Charlotte, or if you just happen to be one of those people who are just LaMelo Ball fans, because obviously he's a star of the team. But it's not for the weak.
Yeah.
And it's not. I mean, again, you can't question loyalty if you talk to a Hornets fan, or better yet, Bobcats fan.
Yeah. The thing you sent me on social media, Cam sent me something this past week, I believe, said, how loyal are you? And then it's just a picture of the Hornets logo. And that pretty much sums it up. And I preface, it's so sad because I preface whenever I meet somebody and we kind of start talking sports, I preface my fandom with, unfortunately, I'm a fan of blank. And it's just sad that I have to do that. But you get those crazy looks, and maybe one day we can kind of laugh at them and be like, haha, I was a fan during the tough times. But yeah, man, it's just sad at this point.
It is. And the thing is, we still aren't even the worst team in the league. I mean, the Wizards are worse than us. So,
Yeah.
but people look at and talk about the Hornets like they're the worst in the league. But hey, again, at least we're not at that bottom spot. Again, it's not for the weak. Hopefully one day we'll be able to truly be proud of something. I still think there's potential. It's like all things involved have to go right in order for it to go well.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just culture. It really comes down to culture and the leaders in the locker room. And at least for the Hornets, Taj Gibson has played on some winning teams. I don't know if he's ever really been on some really, really good teams, but
Yeah.
we just don't really have that veteran leadership. And no disrespect to Taj, but he's the oldest player on the team, and we just need that veteran leadership. And all these guys are still so young, and it's just a bunch of little kids running out there. You run around out there, it feels like sometimes it's a bunch of 22 and 23-year-olds that don't know how to win, and like an AAU team, man, just scoring a bunch of points, not really playing defense, and putting up the highlight plays and the alley oops when everybody's healthy, and the dunks and the crazy reels, and then you look at you see these reels and these highlights, and you're like, oh, surely they won. They probably blew them out. And you look at the box score, and somehow we lost because we gave up 160 points. It's like, it's just all you can do is laugh because you got to make light of the situation. But yeah, man, it's really just another year of Hornets basketball.
And what makes it worse is when you hear a loud celebration from the good old Hornets announcer, Eric Collins, on just about every good play you see of us, whether it's a highlight, you always hear it from him. And I could bow down to that man. He's been doing this for years. I know he's seen the good, bad, the ugly, and he still lets his, excitement be there regardless. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
Eric
absolutely.
Collins, us Hornet fans, truly, truly appreciate you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So, and then on top of that, we still got next week will be interesting with the trade deadline, February 6th, I believe at 2 p.m. That'll be an interesting day because it's always something. Don't know what I expect us to do, but hey, it's too late to really move any major needles. If we do any big trades, of course, we'll cover it on here. But yeah, man, it's being a Hornets fan is not for the weak. I'll just end it at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you want to get in some Carolina college hoops?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and get into it. Well, once again, my Tar Heels are not where I would like for them to be. I won't even say where they should be because they're not performing to that. Last night they had a disappointing loss to Pittsburgh. They were up in Pittsburgh. Just, I don't know, somebody must have gave them all like an energy boost or something. They just started playing different and they shut us down in the end. It was so disappointing. But Tar Heels sitting at 13-9, play Duke Blue Devils Saturday, February 1st. Man, it's gonna be a sad game for me as a Tar Heel fan. I mean, I watch Duke. I'll admit I always have because whenever they have fun players to watch, I will keep up. And Cooper Flag, you can't knock it. He's a talented guy. I just hope I hope the best for the rest of his career going into the pros. But on to the Duke Blue Devils, like I mentioned, they are playing UNC Saturday, February 1st. They're still sitting at number 2, and they're standing at 18-2. It's pretty solid. And the good old Wolfpack sitting at 9-11. They play Clemson Saturday, February 1st. So got a bit of Carolina rival games going on there. Definitely looking forward to I can't even say looking forward, but this Duke UNC game, that's always a money grabber game, but it won't be a competitive one this year, unfortunately. Think it's gonna be a shootout. I'm almost afraid to watch it, but I like to watch Cooper Flag, so I will be watching it. And on top of that, just watch representation from the good old state of North Carolina.
Yeah, yeah. Duke's really carrying the state of North Carolina right now. They're playing really well, and they've the only 2 losses. They beat the number 1 team in the country, given Auburn, talking about Auburn, giving them their only loss. And yeah, I've been trying to keep up with it, and I've been watching a lot of SEC basketball recently because SEC has been so good. I know it's off topic of the UNC and all and Duke, but SEC basketball, man, they've been looking good. I watched the Auburn Tennessee game last Saturday. That was a kind of a defensive game, and both teams were really missing a lot of shots. But I've enjoyed watching college basketball more than I have NBA right now, just because the Hornets are not very good and they still play really good defense in college basketball. So that's nice to see every once in a while. But yeah, the SEC has been looking really good. Tennessee, Kentucky, Auburn, Alabama, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. The list goes on of teams that are in the top 25, I believe. And it's really just crazy how times have changed. The ACC used to run college basketball, and now it's kind of flipped around a little bit. It's just weird.
I mean, I can't lie. It is good to see teams that weren't in like the top 20 in there. Like, it just shows that the dynamic of college sports in general is just changing. NIL and all that has a lot to do with it. Being able to bring in players, offering them money. It's changing the whole dynamic, but it's definitely very fun to watch. It's a lot more competitive to me than NBA. Like you said, I mean,
Yeah.
It's all around, and it's just honestly, it's a lot more entertaining than NBA this year.
Yeah.
It has been that way probably for the last handful of years. And everybody always knows how fun March Madness is, the
Yeah.
whole tournament. And you just never know. That's the beauty of it. It's a one and done tournament. You don't have, game sevens and all that. You don't
Yeah.
have to get to a certain amount of wins of the same team playing against the other a few handful of games. So that's why you got to love the tournament. And sometimes a top team ends up getting beat by a sleeper in the end. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's March Madness, man. It's one of those fun times during the year, and everybody makes brackets, and I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be fun. But anyway, Buzz Pound, we appreciate y'all for joining us for episode 19. Hopefully, we can have some good Hornets news to talk about next week, and we'll definitely be talking about the deadline and some trades. But as always, you can follow us on both X and Instagram at BuzzPoundPod, and you can listen to our podcast on both Spotify and YouTube at BuzzPound Podcast. And we appreciate each and every one of you for continuing to listen. And if you continue to listen, especially with how these teams are going, consider yourself myself a loyal fan.
And a loyal Buzzbound fan. We
Yeah.
appreciate everybody that listens to us weekly, because it's rarely any positive news, but anybody that sits through and listens to Ian and I, we are very appreciative of you all. So with that being said, keep pounding and keep the Hive mentality.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Buzz Pound. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and let us know what you thought of this episode. Until next time, this is the Buzz Pound.
Touchdown.